Just so everyone knows, to protect user customer privacy, this is real instance, real data, but it is randomized and anonymized so that, obviously people's names are not with their avatars and it's not associated with the direct company, etc.
So you're
Um,
telling me that Pied Piper isn't a real company?
so you know what? Pied Piper is a real company, but it's in the sixth dimension. So in our dimension here, we're safe. I think it's the dimension called Silicon Valley TV show 2014. So you can see my screen?
Yeah, you're all good.
Hello.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yep.
All right. So you are looking at your home screen. This just gives you a very quick overview. I'm that community leader, community manager, hands on the keyboard practitioner, maybe a developer advocate, developer relations leader. And I just want to come into Common Room and at first just see like what's happening in general, right? What are the latest conversations that have been trending? What's the total activity across my sources? What's the general sentiment over the last 7 days? You can change this depending on your time frame. Want to get a really quick view of my members. So, who has newly entered my community over the last 7 days and who are they? Who is recently inactive? This is one of those great moments, I think, where you're like, hey, I remember this person, coming in and contributing to the community or asking questions. And now they were in the top 25% of folks that were active in your community. And now over the last 7 days, they haven't come back or haven't participated. And so that might be a good moment to sometimes check in, right? We have a really quick idea of organizations to watch. And so when we say fastest growing, we mean number of community people in your community, number of your community members who work in that organization who have like joined your community. So Layer, for example, 6 new members were added over the last month. So that has grown 600%, or I guess from 1 to 6 essentially of people. And that's like a really good indicator, right? Where you're like, wow, okay, obviously our product is catching on there because within last month, one person started using it and now it has grown 600% within that organization. Net new organizations you can see, and then engaged organizations with sentiment. So that means organizations who have interacted with your own like product brand and whether or not they're expressing sentiment about you. And if that's an organization like Snowflake and the sentiment goes from 14% negative to 80% negative, then you're like, we should probably get in touch with that team, with those community members, with our account team, so they know what's happening. And then you have a quick like community responsiveness. You can get like a really high overview of have people been responded to? What's your median response time? How are you doing? This is a really quick overview. It's home. And so I'm going to actually dive into the things that make up communities, right? And so, Blake, this is what you were talking about. Members are at the core of any community. The individual people that are contributing, asking questions, giving answers, sharing expertise, celebrating each other. It's also made up of the activities that they do. We'll get there in a second. The organizations like all these members that kind of roll up into these larger organizations and end up being able to. It's usually an organization that buys a product or the members that are like, hey, we want to at this company. Like we are the ones that want to use this in a large scale way. And then we'll get into reporting. So when you look at members, what we do here is we add that layer of intelligence, right? And so let's say there are 44,000 members in my community. Let's say I want to find out folks who are contributors because we define a contributor as someone who replies to posts or interacts with posts that they did not originate. And so this is that person that they didn't come to the community, ask a question, get their answer, but they are sticking around and spending their time answering others' questions or contributing content back or sparking conversations or continuing conversations. Um, so Common Room, we have 4 automatic tags that we surface for you. So really quick members of interest as we know their organization or their role in that organization and or their role. Pioneers means it's the first person from an organization to join your community. This is usually a pretty big indicator or can be a big indicator, right? Of that first person who's bringing in your product into another organization. They're like, hey, I know we're embarking on this new project. I really want to use Figma in order to design this instead of our legacy of what we've been using for the last 10 years. Figma feels more flexible, feels more collaborative, whatever reasons that this person might say, let's try to use this. And then they bring it into the organization, they start it in that project. The team really likes it. That team tells another team, this is really great. You should try to use this too. So that pioneer might be that like first person that brings your product into their own company or their own teams. Influencers are people that have broad reach, so more than 500 followers on Twitter or more than 100 followers on GitHub in different ways that we define this, which you can see in details. But let's say I'm like, I want to find my contributors. I really want to thank them for everything that they're doing in the community. And I want to find contributors who are pioneers. So let's say we have like a very specific thank you campaign that we want to be like, hey, thank you for contributing back to the community and for being the first person in your organization to do so. So I can filter by this. And then I see that there are almost 2,000 members. So what I'll do here is add a filter. You can do this by people that have content around them, the first time they entered your community or the last time you're seeing their community. For people in the developer space, you can do it by programming language. So let's say I'm like, you know what? I really want to do this for people that are using Python. So then we can filter by Python. Then voila, you have 153 folks. So what you could do, while I won't like finagle this too much, since it's an instance, what you can do is say, okay, great. I want to add all of these folks to a segment. And in that segment, for example, I'd show you what that would look like. You can then say, okay, here's all the people, product persona research, but let's say this segment is thanking Python contributors who are the first people to bring our product to their organization. And then you can go ahead and take actions off of this segment. You can say, you can change your statuses. You could say, hey, I want to reach out, right? I already reached out. We're in conversation. I invited them to this thank you event. I sent them a swag code, etc. And then you can go ahead and leave team notes here. So I could say, hey, Blake, wanted to let you know 18 of these 33 people have gotten back to us. Like 17 of them are attending the event. I can share this segment with other folks. I can download the CSV. And then I can set notifications on this segment. So basically, I can then say, tell me anytime one of these people adds a new piece of content or one of their organizations like makes a change, right? More people have joined from their organization. I can set all sorts of notifications directly from this segment. So that is a very quick overview of members. Absolutely. So it's not going to be a distant future. Really quickly, what I will say is so you have activities, right? I think these will lead into workflows, but we pull out things like trending conversations. You can explore categories. But one of the biggest things here, right, is like not only who is saying it, but what they are saying and who's involved. And so, what is really important here, to go back to one of the questions about sentiment, we could say, just show me, like, I want to triage really quickly and help my product teams understand what's happening. So we can look at negative sentiment and we can say, I want to look at negative sentiment about bugs or issues. And then I also want to say, I need to see everything, single thing that has not yet been replied to. So now as a team, I can say, okay, here is all the activity that's negative sentiment, still has no response, and is categorized as a bug or issue. And now I can go ahead and triage it really quickly. I can either send this to my product teams. I can just get a better idea of like when we're going to resolve this, how we're going to resolve it. I can get back to this person. If I wanted to, I could click into this person's profile and see who they are, where they are, how to reach out to them, and every time they've been active in my community. So you can really dive in here and then create team notes, bring other team members in, give everyone visibility onto what's happening. So that's a really quick overview of activity, right? You can do all sorts of things. You can like filter by all sorts of categories. Who has an account support question? Who's created content in your community? There are all sorts of ways that you can use this. Organizations, this will also lead into the workflows really quick. We wrap this all up into organizations, right? So let's say you know that your sales team is like already at all the big organization stuff, like they're already at those enterprise level. So let's say I want to look at smaller organizations they're at like this type of revenue. Then I can say, okay, cool. Here's an organization. What's going on with this organization? What are they trying to do? Who are my members in there? And what are their titles and roles to give account teams, growth teams, your community teams, marketing teams a better idea of who your context of who you're speaking with. And then reporting. So you can come here, download reports, change your number of days that you're looking at your reports, get your idea of community health, your membership over time, your engagement over time, your active members, where all of your activity is happening across your connected sources, your general sentiment, region. People love this. It's super helpful to understand where to do sorts of like, where should we have more meetups? I had no idea that here was like a super active hotspot. Do we have enough headcount there? Do we have enough community members there or community support there? And then you can look at responsiveness, most active members. So this is something that you can do that I think stakeholders not only love, but community managers and leaders love because they are like, wow, this used to take me hours to do this. And now I can share it with a link, export it to PDF, download it, and say, here's how the community is changing over 7 days, 28 days, the last 6 months, etc. And so you can wrap all of this up into a few different things. Segments, right, will be those workflows where we just looked at. You can say, like, hey, all these people in a segment, send them a swag code. This is coming soon, right? Send them a message that says thank you and invite them to this thing. You can bulk message them and say, we want to make sure that we are thanking you or amplifying your work. Team alerts is a really big workflow. And so this is one of those things where you can say, hey, every time a new member for Slack comes in and that new member, we'll go back here. I'm a little constrained on what I can click on because it's instance. So we'll look at this one. Let's say a new large organization comes, an organization over 500 people. You can actually send an alert directly to an internal Slack channel and say, hey, community ops, just so you know, this is the first time that we've seen someone from this organization enter the community. And it'll say, this person has entered. Here's the organization they work at. Just wanted to let you know it's the first time they've ever interacted in your community. And then the last thing I'll show is our automations, which we are continuing to build out. This is what I talked about kind of at the top of our conversation, that this idea, right, of that you can open up that door to conversation, not because you're trying to pretend you're not sending an automated message, but because you want to make sure that person has like an open channel to communicate with you. And so you can say when a new member joins, you can also set additional filters or member filters. Let's say you only want to say hello to new contributors. You can make sure that there's an automation message set up for them where they say, send it between these time windows. Here's the information. You can like create that for them. And then you open up that dialogue immediately. We also have a check-in message. So you can set this at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And it can either has never participated in your community yet. And so you might want to say, hey, just see if you need anything. Or you can say, send it to everyone. And I just want to check in with you. Like, are you having fun in the community? Are you getting value out of the community? Do you have any feedback for what you would love to see? So in terms of what's coming next, we are building out automations super robustly so that people will be able to do things, like send surveys or have smaller cohorts of those automations. There'll be more like filters that you can apply to it. We've worked a ton with our customers about what would feel right and good to them and their communities. A lot of it has to do with like, hey, I want to make sure that contributors feel recognized. So if someone contributed to my community 10 times in the last week, let's open up that message immediately and say, you've been contributing. Thank you so much. Let me know if there's something I can do, or hey, here's a swag code. Please go get cool socks and a mug. So there are all sorts of ways that we're going to build this out. More integrations that are coming. In terms of our sources, we have more than 20, but we have more on the way. Reddit is coming very soon, Skilljar, some Dev2 stuff, which we're really excited about. And I think I have covered the biggest areas